So here are the behavioral checks that happened. We only keep the log files if we trip on something. So I know that this guy tried to launch a file to .//, which makes it a couple of directories up, file.exe. So it went and pulled this down, tried to launch that. So right there, that's conclusive that this is a malicious page. I also have heuristic detections, and I also have reputation sources that, where it pulled stuff down was from a site that's on the bad list from Google or Trend or various other reputation sources. It's not really pertinent to this talk, but it is a powerful add-on that you can just throw in there because you've got all of this data hooked in. The nice part about being this low into the operating system, I know exactly what traffic went back and forth. So if they try the redirection games, no problem. We know exactly where every piece of that script, every piece of that HTML came from. We can track it back, and we can replay at will any of these attacks. So if I see the attack once, I can always verify that it's going to happen, and I can always replay it as a form of proof. Now that's actually a key point in the malvertising scenario, because any DoubleClick, Ad Center, Google, they're like, oh, we never serve malware, and good luck trying to get them to admit that they may have served a piece of malware. This is definitive proof. This is where the exploit came from. It was from the ad iframe. So we also log, before I get into the script, so the raw HTTP traffic, so I know everything that came across the wire. Now, you'll notice this one went directly to the site, scotty.net. Not sure it's going to do this, but this one gives me a lot of trouble because it will only serve me malware once a day, once every n hours. I don't know what those n hours are. So I'm going to rescan it and show you what it does in a little bit. I'm going to rescan it and show you what it does now that it's served me one piece of malware. But before we do that, let me prove that all of the dissection stuff happens automatically. This is what the script originally looks like, not human readable. This is what it evaluates down to. Further down, the further down I go, this is just a raw dump of what we see from the instrumentation within the JavaScript interpreter and the DOM. And eventually we'll get down to the point where I can see human readable code. This is an exploit kit. Here's trying to attack Flash. It's using a heap spray. It's detecting my version of Flash and tailoring the actual attack to the version of Flash that I have. It's also going to launch a PDF exploit, Flash 10 exploit. The list goes on. And it looks like it's also going to do IE peers. So no interaction required. I can detect it, and I can pretty much rip it apart with very little effort. So I'm going to go up and rescan this guy and see if it will repro. Apologies ahead of time if it doesn't. But from my experience with this particular exploit kit is it's very picky about who it will actually exploit. So it just exploited me. So my posit, it's not going to do it again because that's too obvious. It'll be, I'm a researcher. I've already exploited that IP. I don't need to exploit it again. So put that link in. I'm going to just say don't crawl. Just give me the first one. I'm going to up the priority in case there's anything else running. I don't really care about that. And I want to keep the logs even though there may not be a detection. So let's see if it actually runs on one of these. Now, it looks like another one of the 96 VMs got it. So we sit here for 30 seconds or so. So it's telling me the crawl's in progress, the behavioral scan is in progress. You can see my UI skills there. It doesn't even update. Just have to hit refresh. And no behavioral, no heuristic. The only thing that's the same is reputation, and I see Google over there. So what happened? The first time I did it, it stayed on site and exploited me. The second time I did it, I look at the raw HTTP traffic. Well, I went there. I said, give me the same URL, index.php on scotty.net, and it just gave me a 302 and punted me off to Google. Clever. If you're trying to evade detection, it's a pretty easy way of doing it. Just keep a small list of IPs you've infected and don't keep infecting them. Pretty brain dead. I think that's all I really wanted to cover. Probably a little bit early. Thank you very much. And Special shout out to Richie, who's in the audience, who helped me co-author, and Brian, who's in my team in Seattle. Couldn't have done this without them, and we'll open this up to Q&A. All of the above. So at first, this is pro bono. We want to give back to the community. We want to help out. That's the starting point. The next logical step there is actually running these scans for enterprises as part of a protection type suite. I can't give you the marketing spiel. I'm just a software architect. But it is generally give back to the community, build up knowledge in the malware space, and help. And if you really want to know, the CEO is right there, so just hunt him down later.
I can give you the answer, the very straightforward answer. We sincerely believe today that malware is becoming so sophisticated that one company cannot do all. That's what we community effort. So what Rami is also building, starting to do the community folder, whereby we can put that malware detection tool and other. With the scalability that we've been here, we could literally today scan every website on the planet everywhere. So we do currently today about 5 million UIs. I didn't say today.
Yeah. I'd need a lot more hardware budget.
Anyway, he's a rich guy, so he can do it. So I think we do how much? 5 million UIs?
We do about 3 to 5 million, depending on the scale points. And it's pretty much scales linearly, add another virtual machine, get another million a day.
So the next step, we're going to be the research portal and also share information, etc. So essentially, so we could try to detect, obviously, malware, any kind of malware, and then analyze it, and of course, develop investigate the community.
It's also a gold mine of exploitability data. If we're scanning enough, we can see how particular exploits are trending. We can help people prioritize patching. There's a lot of really interesting things you can do. We can make recommendations on browser types when we start implementing new browsers, on what plugins you should avoid. There's a lot of happy congruences that occur when you have a large database to pull from. There's a lot of BI that you can do that has great value. And Philippe's kind of alluded to that as well.
I'm curious how you keep your environment clean. Are you actually wiping and building those around your everything actually preventing the execution from occurring?
Both. So the very first step is anything that violates the behavioral profile, we behavioral block. Behavioral blocking was really big about 5 years ago. The antivirus vendors were like, oh, we're just going to implement behavioral blocking, and lo and behold, it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because you don't know what the user's doing. In this particular case, there is no user. It's all automated. We know exactly what it's doing. Therefore, behavioral blocking is not only possible, it's actually really quite easy. And anytime we see anything that's going to affect the state of the machine or pollute one scan to the next, we block that. And also, just to be safe, we reboot the virtual machine after a certain period, or if we get a certain number of detections or a certain number of errors. So it's both. We're paranoid. We don't want to pollute results, but at the same time, we don't want to incur the hit of starting and stopping a virtual machine for every web page we scan. It just doesn't scale that way.
Have you ever done your program with a thin hypervisor such as Sandbox IE?
We have not. I'm not sure what the implications are there. I haven't researched it. But one of the things that I'm trying to keep is the purity of the experience. I don't want it to be easy to detect what we're doing. I'm sure there are ways, but I want to make that as hard as possible. And I don't want to get into the situation where I am making assumptions about the attack vector. There are other ways you can do this. You can emulate JavaScript. You can emulate the browser. You can do all kinds of stuff. But the further you deviate from the raw actual binary that people are running, the more of a chance that you're going to miss something, or you're not going to account for an attack vector that's going to happen 5 years from now, or 2 months from now, or tomorrow. Please.
I'm curious, on the behavioral side, your features appear to be purely API calls. So that is the rules that you use to determine if they incorrectly
Predominantly. Predominantly. It's not purely correct, but that is the predominant answer, yes.
Okay. And then they seem to be Boolean decisions, right? So that is, the browser should never call if you don't invoke the browser.
Some of them are a little more complicated than that, but you basically hit the theory of it. It is a Boolean operation. There are certain cases where it's okay under this scenario to touch this file when you're doing this, but only if this plugin is loaded. And
Yeah, I guess that was my question is, Sam, do you envision that for the behavioral side, I guess you pointed out that's why you need the heuristic mode, but it seems like if you were using purely behavioral, you are going to get a lot of false positives.
no, not false positives, the other way around. With purely behavioral, you're going to get a lot of false negatives. Where that becomes a problem is when you add ActiveX controls or more controls, the interactions get more complicated. But what it really boils down to is a yes or no answer. Is this okay? Is this something is this something that violates the behavioral profile? Is this something the browser should be doing without the user? When you strip away all the weird edge cases and the caveats, that's what it really boils down to. It's a Boolean operation. Yes, this is okay. No, it's not. The more plugins, the more features, the more things you throw in, the more complex the behavioral profiles become. But they always boil down to yes or no.
So then you envision the need for, I guess, the concept of maintenance of the profile. I mean, almost like you have to keep generating signatures, and do you envision having to keep
No.
updating the profile?
So the behavioral profile only has to be updated when you update the browser, when you update the ActiveX objects that it's using, or you add more. So the only time the behavioral profile ever changes is when your base configuration changes. That's what's so appealing about this technique. I don't have to add new signatures. I don't have to add new behaviors. Assuming that I understand the browser, assuming I understand the plugins on that browser, the behavioral profile is the behavioral profile, and it's a Boolean operation. Anytime I change anything, if I update the operating system, if I update the browser, if I update a plugin, if I change the username of the person logged in, if I do anything to change the VM state, then I have to update my behavioral profile. But that's the only case. And we don't do that.
Is there a timeout on the screen?
Yes, there is. So it's a configurable timeout, and it's also predicated upon when it's done loading. And there's some other things that we do that try to make it a little more intelligent. I don't want to give you a set time because next thing you know, instead of 200 milliseconds, it'll be whatever that set time times 2, and all the scripts will be there. I don't imagine I'm that widely popular, but you know, then the exploit isn't going to get anywhere. I mean, no one's going to sit on a web page for 2 minutes consistently. But you're right, it would defeat us at that point. Well, actually, no, let me take that back. We can detect the sleep. At that point, we can start being more intelligent. Now, I didn't have that as a canned answer, it just occurred to me. If we hook the actual sleep, eventually the script interpreter is going to run and hit the sleep, at which point we're going to say, hey, this script is sleeping, waiting for something. Let's stick around, or let's fake it out and trigger it anyway.
But there's too much sleep.
I don't agree. Like, all you do is hook the sleep function and look for the max value. Once you have the max value, extend your scan to that duration. And if it gets unreasonable, then you're right, then it becomes problematic.